Hello, everybody. Hello. We'll let people join. We'll give it a few minutes as usual. Welcome to everyone, those who are coming back to another webinar, and also warm welcome to everyone who is here with us for the first time. Hi everyone. Yes, feel free to put some messages in the chat where you are joining from. So I'm in Worcestershire in the UK, very close to Payara Malvern office, our headquarters. In the UK, it's actually a first day of summer in Europe, in this part of the planet. So it's very nice, very summery. So happy first day of summer for those of you who are not in Australia, for example, because that's definitely first day of winter there, I think. So we're on the sunny side. Yeah, I can see more people joining, so we'll give it another minute or two before we begin. And a bit of housekeeping as usual. So for those of you who have attended our webinars before, it's the same sort of structure as usual. So we welcome any questions at any point during the webinar, so you don't need to wait until the very end. You can put your questions or suggestions or any discussion topics really in the chat at any point during our webinar. If any of other people who are listening, watching know the answer, then please go ahead. If you want to, you can also chat amongst yourselves. You can answer each other's questions if you wish, but I will be monitoring the questions during the presentation, during the demo, and we will get to them at some point during the webinar. So yes, no need to wait until the very end. There's also Q&A option, which is a little bit easier for just typical question answer sort of a approach, where we can also type the answers back. But we tend to answer the questions live so that everyone definitely hears the answer. Sometimes we can also show the answer depending obviously on the question. So yes, please feel free to chat, feel free to ask questions, suggestions, etc. So yeah, I think we've got quite a few people already. It's 4 past, so I think it makes sense that we kick off now. So thank you again, everyone, for joining. So today, our webinar topic is Effortless Jakarta EE application monitoring with Payara Monitoring Console. My name is Dominika Tasasz, and I am a marketing specialist and community builder at Payara. And our speaker for today is Lukman Saeed, who is our Jakarta EE expert and Payara tech writer. So yeah, he's also a Payara platform expert, of course. So yes, so before we begin, and I'll move over to Lukman, I just want to say a few words about Payara Monitoring Console. So for those of you who have been using Payara for a while, you are likely aware of this feature existing, of this tool existing within the platform. It's not a new feature. It's actually been around for quite a while, but we haven't really been mentioning it as much in the couple of months, I guess, because as it usually happens when new features are added, that's when a lot of noise is made about it, and a lot of new users are trying it. But this is one of key features for monitoring, for security, and just in general, one of the key features of Payara platform. And we thought it's probably good to come back to it and reintroduce it again for those of you who might be new to Payara platform, for those of you who might not have used it in the past, for those of you who maybe want to learn a little bit more about it, see the demo, and just find out a little bit more information and maybe ask questions about it as well. So we thought this is probably a good time to bring it back to the front of the conversation, and hence why we are doing this this webinar today. So yeah, I think, just a reminder for those of you who just joined, because I can see more people are joining, please feel free to add your questions in the chat at any point, and I'll get to them. We'll get to them as soon as we can. So I think I'll now give the room to Lukman, and I'll stop sharing and take it away. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Dominica. Let me just share my screen here. And thank you, everybody, for attending. Can everybody see my screen? Dominica, can you confirm for me?
Yes, it's here. Yeah, all good.
Okay, so monitoring, Jakarta EE monitoring. Of course, we all know monitoring is important. We all, as developers, we want to see the juice, but I want us to go over some few stuff before to put things in proper context. Now, monitoring applications in general, not just Jakarta EE, the question we want to ask is, why do we need monitoring? Of course, you can deploy your application and then just hope that it's working. But then to properly deploy a production application and have insight into whether the application is working well, if it's serving its purpose, are users happy, is it up, is it down? All those questions can be answered through monitoring. So once you get the application deployed in a cloud, for instance, you take your WAR file and deploy it to Payara Cloud, your Jakarta EE application is working. You would want to know, how is it working? What are the requests coming to it? Is he able to answer requests and all of that? So through all these things are answered through application monitoring. Now, there are different ways you can monitor applications, different ways, different services out there. But if you are using the standard space Jakarta EE, one of the simplest and dead simplest ways you can add effortless monitoring to application is through, for instance, the use of MicroProfile. So in this sample application, I have a simple MicroProfile health check implementation here that is implemented as a very simple Jakarta EE application scope class that has a liveness, a readiness, and then a startup check. These are all MicroProfile health check construct. So essentially, we are checking if the application is ready to respond to data, and even when the application is ready during runtime, is it up, is it down? Now, what we did in the implementation here is that we are simply saying that if the free memory available on the JVM are available to the JVM is below a certain threshold, then you will just say, nope, the application is not live or is not started yet. So we have this. When the application starts, the runtime is going to query and check, is it up, is it down? And then this is going to answer. So you have this monitoring in there. And then over here as well, I just added the simple @counted annotation. @counted is from the MicroProfile metrics API. This simply adds a count. So as you can see here, it says an annotation for marking an artifact registered in the application registry. So how many calls have been made to this endpoint? We can count all those. Now, once you have your monitoring in place, then obviously the whole point of monitoring is to monitor. So yes, you have the monitoring in place, it's being collected, but where do you view it? You know, the shiny graphs and all that data, where do you view it? We come to this next point. There are different ways you can consume application monitoring data, different ways, and there are different options out there. There's Grafana, there is Greylog, there's different options, different permutations, different combinations of them out there that you can use. But this session is about Payara Console, the Payara Monitoring Console. So what is the Payara Monitoring Console? The Payara Monitoring Console is a built-in, by built-in, I mean you don't lift a finger, it's just built into the server. So once you download the Payara server, you have it. It's a monitoring console that gives you all the shiny graphs, really, and all the data, the monitoring data that you need at your fingertips for free. You just need to click a few places to configure it as you wish, and then that data will be collected for you. So this particular application here is a dead simple Jakarta EE application that has two endpoints for creating a department and an employee. And then we have some, as you've seen here, we have the health check service here that will be intermittently queried by the runtime to return data and all that. It's a dead simple Jakarta EE application that is deployed to a Payara server. Now, I have a Payara server instance here, Payara 6, the latest version. I have it here, and I have it started already with the application deployed. Now, to make a sample call, we can just make a REST call to one of the endpoints. And then you can see we have data returned. So let me just pick this HR and make another call here. So this guy, it's an employee. Okay, sorry, I'm using the wrong endpoint. Let me change this here. HTTP. Yes, good. That should work. Yes, indeed, it worked. So I have made two calls to those endpoints. Now, the application is deployed. Let's go and start our Payara Monitoring Console. To do that, we need to pass in this command to the as admin shell script. So we start it, and then this should start the monitoring console for us. So now this monitoring console is started, and all I need to do is to go to localhost / monitoring console. So let me just bring the browser instance here. Start a new browser, say localhost / 8080 / monitoring console. So let me bring this here. Now, as you can see, this is my monitoring console. Let's start from here. So this monitoring console was started with this command, which is fine. Now, all of this is for free. You don't need to do anything. This is all from the download that I did. And this is a very, very vanilla Payara server download that I did. I had to wipe everything I was doing just to start from scratch. And this is what we have. Now you can configure this from the usual Payara configuration, localhost 4848, yes, here. You can always configure this from the DAS over here. So let's go in. Yes. Now over here, you can configure the entire Payara server in those UIs for those of you who are familiar. So let's go down here and then go to health check here and then tick this as enabled. Let's tick save. Let's come to CPU usage. Let's tick enabled here. So this is where you enable the various shiny stuff you want to see on your application. I'm not using a connection pool, so I can leave this. Let me enable the heap memory usage, machine memory usage. Let me enable those as well. Hugging threads, I can enable this. Stack threads, I don't expect to have any stack threads. Let me enable the GC as well. MicroProfile health checker, let me enable this, save. And then metrics checker, let me enable those as well. Save. So I've enabled all of these here. Now, if I come to monitoring, you can see I have very beautiful graphs here. These are all collected from my application and also the runtime that I'm running the application on, which is obviously Java, and then even the operating system itself. Now, as you can see, there are pop-ups coming up. I hope you can see. Dominica, can you see the pop-ups?
Yes, yes.
Okay,
sure.
There are pop-ups coming here, and these pop-ups here, this pop-up, for instance, is from this particular place, this particular health checker that we have here. So what Payara does is that it is constantly querying the health checks and then relaying that information to the monitoring console. So as and when there is a problem, then you are going to have these pop-ups come up. So if I come to alert here, you can see there are quite a number of alerts here. Some of them are about not being healthy. You can see value is less than 60%. This is the health check, and this was intentionally put in just to make sure that at some point there is some health check down status that comes in. So this is collected and everything is relayed to the monitoring console on our behalf for free. You can also see here, apart from the application data, there's also the JVM information. You have live threads, daemon threads here. Any HTTP service that you configure will come up here. Request tracing, if you have any enabled, will come up, and then you have traffic lights. This part here for me is the favorite because once you look at it, you know exactly what is going on. And as you can see the liveness up here, it's red. Physical memory usage, which is about 42%. And if I check, my memory usage should be around that figure. So here you can see I have 32 gigs of memory, and over here, what I have currently, I'm using currently, is 13.5 gigs, which is roughly around 42 or 43% of it, and that is displayed here. So this is referring to my physical memory. Of course, if I deploy this to a container, this would be the memory available to the Docker instance. So you want to be careful or keep that in mind when you are reading this physical memory. For instance, you have this, and then you can see all this are from the application and then from the underlying JVM and all that. If I come to the core here, you can see now I have some heap usage here, CPU usage, which is quite encouraging. I have a low CPU usage. And then here, the thread count, you can see I have about 150 or so of them up here. So the console collects all these data and then puts them in this one application for you to use. Now, you might be asking yourself, yeah, but there is other applications. Of course, no single tool as a developer, and really even for chefs, as a chef, let's use analogies. For chefs, there is not a single application that is, or not a single tool that is a panacea for all problems. The Payara Monitoring Console is built into the server. So if you are thinking of monitoring, then you just want to use what is built into the server for starters. Now, for every tool, once you outgrow that tool, you will get to know that, no, I think I've outgrown this tool and I need a far bigger tool. But for starters, and for many use cases, I think this should be more than enough because I have been using this for quite some time and I've never had the need to use any other tool. And like I said, this is built into the server. You don't need to do any configuration, some YAML file here, some dashboard settings there. It just comes with the server for you for free. So all you need to do, you download the server and then you have this. So all these metrics here are put together from partly your application, partly the runtime, partly the operating system, just to give you this overview. And you can always configure it right in here in the configuration console here. You can set all these things, and then these will be picked up right in the monitoring for your use. Do I have any questions so far, Dominica?
Yes, so we have two questions. The quick one is, which application are you using to present that dashboard?
Yes, it's a vanilla Jakarta EE application, which is available in the Payara samples on GitHub. It's a very simple MongoDB-based application where we are storing some information in MongoDB. So I can demo this here. This, for instance, is the department document or the department database, if you so will, where this call that I made will be stored into that database here. So you can see it here. And then this is the employee database here. So it's a very vanilla Jakarta EE application. that is using MongoDB as the backend to store data.
Great. And we've got another question from Yang, which is the health check also available in the full Jakarta EE or only in MicroProfile?
Yeah, health check is available in the Jakarta, in the MicroProfile specification. Jakarta EE itself alone doesn't have a health check app in the sense, of course, you can always implement it, but the health check that we saw, so back to the code here, this health check here, this APIs that I'm using, this health check API, this health check response and all that are from the MicroProfile specification here, MicroProfile. But Jakarta EE itself as alone doesn't have that. But then again, in my mind, MicroProfile is just an extension of Jakarta EE. You can think of MicroProfile as a subset. In fact, it's not think of, because MicroProfile currently, the current version, which is version 6, requires Jakarta EE Lite. It requires the smaller set of Jakarta EE. So we can quickly check this here. If we come to MicroProfile here, version 6 of MicroProfile, this is version 6 here. It requires Jakarta EE 10 core profile. So you can think of MicroProfile as a core or a junior brother of Jakarta EE. So they are the same. It's just the naming that are different, but they are the same. So technically, Jakarta EE does have a health check API. But of course, if you want to go the final distinction, then yes, the health check API is in the MicroProfile API. But to all intents and purposes, this is available on the Jakarta EE platform. And most of the time, you are going to be using them together anyway. If you add Jakarta EE, as I've done here, if you add Jakarta EE, most of the time, you're just going to add MicroProfile as well. Any further question?
No more questions for now. Thank you.
Great. Good. So we go back here, and then we can just click around a few things. We can enable few more things here. Let me go back to health check. Health check. I think we enabled everything here as we need. Let me just add this. See. Just cross-check. Dynamic, yes. See. Garbage collector, yes. Stack threads for, let me just add this. Why not? Since we are demoing. Hugging threads, yeah, this is added. Machine memory, yes. Heap, yes. Connection pool, but let me just add it. I don't have any connection pool, but let me just add it. CPU, yes. Journal, yes, this is enabled. Let me just go back here. So I have everything enabled. Now let's go back and go to the JVM, and then you can see we have a used heap, loaded classes or loaded classes, live threads, daemon threads, SQL. There's no SQL in this application. So you will see there's nothing here because, like I stated, this application is a MongoDB backed application. So from the perspective of the runtime, it's pure Java. There's no database access. But of course, there is a database. It's a NoSQL database as the back end here. So when we come back to this console, for these SQL parts, there will be nothing here for now because we are not using anything SQL here. But of course, if you create a data source and start making some database calls, you should see something pop up here as well. And then we come back to health checks here. So you can see the MicroProfile health check. Now, there was a problem here. So we have this in red. Garbage collection, it's okay. The heap here, you can see. Now the heap, the interesting thing is that you can see this bar here. There is red, and then there is amber, and then there is green, which is cool because it's just telling you that, of course, when you get up here, then your heap is it's a problem. The amber here, you just take a look and then you know that, okay, you are trading there. And then this here means we are good. So you can see 35%, and this is in green. So these fine, very fine cosmetics, quality of life visuals are all built into the monitoring console, all for you for free. Just to monitor, just to help you monitor the application very well. If we come to application metrics down here, you can see this now is the application metrics, this particular guy, our MongoDB application here. This is everything about our application here. And this is mostly about the runtime and what it's doing to our application, or what resources our application is using from the perspective of the runtime. And you can see we are not really using much, because we have almost everything being under control for now. So we are not doing much with our application. But if you deploy your application to a production instance and it's a public-facing application, and then you have a lot of concurrent users, then you're going to see a spike. You're going to see quite some activity in here. You're going to see quite some activity in here. But of course, this is just a sample application. And so you have almost all the curves flattened here. And this is all available for you. We didn't lift a finger. This is all collected for us. Any questions so far, Dominica?
Yes. Another question from Jan. What are the impact on performance when monitoring the health check is enabled, with health check is enabled?
Yes, that's a very good question. Now, in terms of performance, there is really no straightforward answer other than it depends. And with performance, you almost always have to measure for a specific case. So for instance, I could take this application and deploy it and open it to the public cloud, or the public on the cloud. I could take the same WAR file, drop it on Payara cloud, and then it will be running there just fine. Open it to the public, and then you're going to have a lot of people pop in. Now, the performance of that is going to be a big, it depends. Most of the time, by default, these metrics should not impact performance most of the time. Again, it depends. But as a rule of thumb, these runtimes are highly optimized to collect this data without really impacting performance. So if you come here, for instance, if you look at our health check here, this is going to be called continuously by the MicroProfile runtime. Now, this is to all intents and purposes, this is a REST endpoint wrapped in some beautiful APIs, but it's a REST endpoint. This is going to be called, you can think of it as REST endpoint. This is going to be called by the MicroProfile runtime intermittently to assess the health of the application. Now, I really wouldn't turn off application monitoring for fear of performance. I would rather monitor the application, and through the monitoring, you are going to identify performance bottlenecks. Because without monitoring, you really don't have you have no evidence to speak as to where performance bottlenecks are. But with health checks and with graphs and with all these at your fingertips, then you would know exactly where you have bottlenecks. So for instance, over here, where was we? Yeah, here. You can look here and then take a look at your heap. No, here. You can look at your heap and know that, no, for instance, here, you can take a look and know that there's a spike in CPU usage. And most of the time, when there's a spike in, for instance, CPU usage or even heap usage, it's not going to be coming from your monitoring runtimes. It's going to be coming from probably some bad code somewhere, or it's going to come from a sudden spike in the application somewhere. It's almost always going to come from outside the application, but not necessarily to do with the runtime. So monitoring is your first step to assessing the performance of the application. So by default, performance is always an it depends situation. Every application is different. Of course, we developers have fallen into the trap of starting a hello world application, but thinking at Google scale. you really are not Google. And chances are a lot of companies will never get to the Google scale. So I really wouldn't worry much. The most important thing is that you want to have insight into how is my application performing. What's the heap usage? What's the CPU usage? If we come down here, yes, how many live threads, how many loaded classes, heap size, blah, 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 all of these stuff, you want to take a look at them, and then you can make an informed decision. So I really wouldn't worry much about performance. In fact, performance, the first step to getting insight and data-backed insight, I should say, to the performance of application is through monitoring. Because without monitoring, you have nothing. And performance is a numbers game. You need the numbers to be able to decide if the application is performing well, even if the runtime is performing well or not. So the first step to that is through monitoring. And you have the Payara Monitoring Console for free. All you do is download, deploy your application, and then it's available for you for free. Any other questions, Rebecca?
Yeah, so another question from Diego. Can we monitor applications' behavior only for servers?
I'm not so sure I understand. Only for servers? Yeah, this is deployed on the Payara Server. So you have this available on the Payara Server. I'm not so sure what he means, because the information we have here.
Maybe Diego can, if it's not the answer, maybe you can retype your question, so we definitely answer the right question. Yeah, we've got a couple more as well, so I'll move on to the next one. So Gabriel is asking, because he probably missed that part, what is the option that we must check to enable these monitoring tools?
Yeah, this is set monitoring console configuration that's enabled through. There is an extensive documentation for the monitoring console on the Payara website. So I can just hand this over to you, Dominica. And
I'll send a link.
Yes, yeah. You can send the link. There is an extensive documentation available for everybody to take a look at here. Yes, so you set this, and then this is enabled. Now, again, it's important for me to reiterate that this is a vanilla Payara server I downloaded. For this webinar, I wiped off everything I had, downloaded this instance, and then extracted it to start this. So just before we started, and then I started the domain 1 as admin, start domain 1, deploy the application, and in deploying, all I did was to take the WAR file I had and then dropped it in the auto deploy folder here, and then it was automatically deployed. So even for the deployment, I just dropped the WAR file and then it worked for me out of the box. So this is all I did. And then, of course, in terms of getting this, I flipped a few buttons as we saw here, and then we got all this here available for us. So it's essentially for free, literally for free, out of the box. It's available for you.
Okay, so another 2 questions from Richard. Do you have example using Elasticsearch to monitor this data? So
yes, like I stated, I do have samples, but not for this application. I do have another sample for using other tools. So not just Elasticsearch, I've played with other tools. And again, like I said, there are different tools you can use for the same thing. So you can set up Elasticsearch to monitor, why not? And then again, Payara Monitoring Console is neither better nor worse compared to other tools. It's just another tool for you to use. And as a developer, the more tools you have in your arsenal, the better and much more efficient you become at solving problems. There are some problems you need a tool to solve, a specific tool within a specific context to solve. So knowing Elasticsearch and having Payara Console, it doesn't spoil, like we say in my local egg here, it doesn't spoil anything. You can have the tool. It shouldn't really matter. But yes, I do have samples. For this webinar, I'm not going to demo that, but I do have other samples. Maybe for a future webinar, we could do that, Jakarta EE monitoring, using those tools as well. Why not, if you are interested in it? So we could set that up as well. But yes, you can have Elasticsearch. You should have similar thing. And the whole point of this is that this comes as part of the server for free. So you don't need to set it up. You don't need to set it up. Yeah. And
then Richard's other question was also, is the monitoring console available in Payara Micro? And I think the answer is no.
Console currently is available in the Payara server. Payara Micro is really designed for very small runtimes and containerized runtimes. So the whole idea of Payara Micro is that you can bundle the runtime, for instance, with your application, and then create an Uber jar of your Java EE or Jakarta EE application. And then you can do a Java jar on it, and then it should just run. So Payara Micro is a very, very optimized, containerized runtime for microservices. But of course, you can always bundle even the full server as well. But Payara Micro is specifically slimmed down for these environments. So this is available on the server, the full server stream.
Right, we've got some more questions. So do you want to carry on, Lukman, or do you want to leave them for later?
Okay, maybe I can just say a few other words about the monitoring here. Now, if you also come down here, you can see there is an alert here. So you can see if I hover over it, I get some messages, one unacknowledged ongoing alert here. So this here, just clicking it now brings me up to these past unacknowledged alerts, and then these are the new ones. And this here is coming from, again, from the health check I configured here. Like I said, I intentionally configured this. So intermittently, you're going to have it say down, and then it will go up, down, and then it will go up. And of course, this whole sample code is available in the Payara examples repository on GitHub, so you can always check it out. But yes, this is done, and then you can see I get these alerts here. So anytime there is a problem, you get the alert coming up, and then it has a modal view where it will seize the view for you. To seize the view, and then you know that there is something you need to attend to. Of course, in a production environment, you want to keep an eye out for such red, because anything that is red in a production environment is a problem. So you want to keep an eye on it. Maybe I can just take the rest of the questions, just if there are any.
Yes, sorry, I'm trying to type the answers as well. Well, but keep the conversation going. So it's really good to have so many questions. So Ralph is asking, what exactly does checking the boxes in the monitoring configurations on Payara console do? And what does it mean if I don't check them? What is the monitoring level you can select next to each module?
Yes, good question. Now, think of this monitoring console as a big basket. And think of clicking this here as dropping this monitoring unit into that basket. So if you don't click it here, none of this monitoring stuff gets dropped into the basket. So if I come here and then I take off this, then we don't get the health check monitoring. If I take off this, then we don't get the GC monitoring. If I take off this, we don't have the stack threads monitoring. So this is where you set what is displayed. This is where you set the data that will, yes, the data that will be collected. This is where you set those here. So MicroProfile metrics health checker, this is where you click it, and then they should be added to the various monitoring views that you have here. Of course, you can add different views, you can add pages, you can add, think of this view as a giant Android homepage or a Android home where you have widgets. So these are all widgets. You can see you can click on this and then edit, you can click on edit, and then you can edit these widgets as well. So you can see the status, is there any alerts, extras, data, and all of these. So all of these, everything you see here is a widget. And each column here, each here on this drop-down pane here, this drop-down pane here, Each one here is a widget that you can put together to form a page. So this is a page, this is a page, this is a page, and each page is made up of widgets. So you can click on a widget and then settings. If there's a problem with the widget, so you can see here, when I click on the connection queue count open connections on the widget, it tells me it requires HTTP monitoring to be enabled. Go to configuration, blah, blah, blah. This is referring to this view here. And then you go and enable that, and then that will be collected. That data will be collected onto and displayed on this widget. So think of this as Lego, sort of, yeah, a Lego, a collection of Lego bricks that you can use to put together your own monitoring dashboard. And the first place to get those bricks is here. So you click them, enable the monitoring sources that you need, and then you come and put them together here. Of course, out of the box, most of these widgets are available. I didn't put all of these together. These are available, but they are widgets that you can always edit. You click on this very shiny pencil icon here, and then you can edit the widgets here. You can see for this, it's enabled, so there's nothing here. In the status, there's nothing here. You can set extras, data here, even here, alarming, you can set the color of the alarming and everything. You can do all those. So it's made up of widgets, and where to get the data from to populate that widget is coming from this place. Yeah. Next question.
Yes, so another question from Ralph is, in the admin console, you always add checker to MicroProfile health when enabling the health checks. What does this do exactly?
Yes, this one, what MicroProfile metrics or health check?
So it says add checker to MicroProfile health.
Yes, health check. This is where we are telling the runtime to collect, to collect this data and display it for us. So the MicroProfile health check, the entire Jakarta EE platform now has this health check built into its DNA through the MicroProfile runtime. So all we are saying with this is that collect the health check. So configuration options for the MicroProfile health check checks the status of the MicroProfile health check endpoint for all instances in the domain. So this, if I go back here, if I come here, yes. So for instance, this alert was pulled in. So you can see it says liveness, liveliness app, yes, liveliness app. This information and all these health check stuff are coming from the health check runtime. So you can see, hello, Jakarta EE, liveness health check. This particular name here is from here. Hello, Jakarta EE, liveliness health check. You can see it's from here. So this health check, so these here, these pop-ups, this alert, for instance, are coming from this particular health check here. So you can see the health check name that we passed, this guy, health check. The name that we passed is what we are having in here in the monitoring console here. So that button is clicked, this health check button is clicked to enable the collection of health check data. And of course, you would expect that in your application, you have health check data set up. So over here, you can see there's another one, hello, health check, liveliness health check here. We have all of that. This is coming from this application that we have set here. And then you can see there's Jakarta-ness, Jakarta readiness, Jakarta started. Because these ones, they are returning up, they don't give a pop-up here. Their pop-ups have been pushed all the way down, but this one is constantly giving a pop-up. So here, for instance, you can see Jakarta app startup fail here. So here in the startup, there was one of the calls, there was a failure in the startup. And this is the startup health check over here. This is the startup health check. And the startup health check, all we are doing is doing a countdown. So we have a startup countdown that should count to 5. And if before counting down to 5, the runtime calls this, then we are saying this should return down. So this is where you enable these health checks to be collected. Yeah. Next question.
Right. So is there an API interface to the monitoring data so that we can process it with external tools?
Yes, we do have APIs for monitoring, and I will share that link with you, Dominica, and then you can share it with them. We do have monitoring APIs, or we do have an API for the Payara server, and one of them is for monitoring, and so you can query that information and then put them together. But then be mindful that you might not necessarily get the same information. It means you need to put your information together. So for instance, what this is doing is that you have different things going on. So if I come to the JVM, this information is not from it's not from my application. This is the Payara server, the implementation of this monitoring doing that. Of course, the MicroProfile health check has APIs where you can query the runtime. So we have the scopes. So we have the application scope, then we have the JVM scope, and then we have the vendor scope. We have different scopes. You can query those scopes to get that information. It just means that you probably need to do, instead of making one call, you probably have to do 2 or 3 calls. If you check out our MicroProfile health check guide, you should see all of that. You have different scopes there that you can query. So this, for instance, could be from is from the MicroProfile health check, but this is from a different endpoint. So you need to do different calls. But we do have an API, and then that will be shared with you in the comments. That will be shared with you, and then you can take a look at it if that meets your needs.
Yeah, that's all questions so far. Thank you, everyone. And yeah, if you got more, then please post. Over to you, Lukman.
Yeah, great. So as our time is drawing near, we can just recap. The Payara Monitoring Console is built into the Payara server, and its principal objective is to help you monitor your deployed Jakarta EE application. Now, like I stated, this is a vanilla runtime I downloaded and extracted, and then started it with the as admin command, and then started the monitoring console and deployed my sample application there. Now, this sample application is a vanilla Jakarta EE application that is talking to a MongoDB backend, and the MongoDB backend is bundled with the application, or is bundled as a Docker container. So we are running the MongoDB here. We are running the MongoDB database in a Docker container. So if I come down here, you can see this is the MongoDB database here running in a Docker container. And this application, I just picked this WAR file and dropped it in the auto deploy folder, and it got deployed automatically. Now, in your own development, you can always drop a WAR file here, and then the server will continuously deploy it. So the server is constantly scanning this. When you drop a WAR file, it deploys. So if I show you this Docker file, Docker compose file here, what I normally do for development is that I mount this deployment folder to this auto deploy folder. So anytime you drop a WAR file here, the running Payara server is just going to pick it and then deploy the application for you. But in this example, I'm not running the server in a container. I'm just running it vanilla as an app on my machine. Just bear in mind that if you run the server in a container, then by default, this endpoint here is secure, and you need to access it through HTTPS. So you go to HTTPS, you go to this endpoint, localhost 8080/monitoring console, and then you log in with admin, and that should open it for you. But this, because I'm running this locally, so I have everything running when I access it without needing to enter credentials. So once I deployed my application, I just did a few clicks and selected the the metrics I want collected on my behalf, and then I just have them here. Now, this whole monitoring console is a collection of Legos. So you can put together your own, and these are pages. And for each page, you can simply add more widgets. So here, active session, you can add, or you can completely remove a widget. So you can remove this, and then this should be removed from there. And you can add widgets. So here, on the right side here, you can click add widget, and then you can add a widget. You can see the source of the widget, server metrics, microprofile metrics, and then you can have namespace. You can have all these fine-tuned stuff here. So these are all widgets. These are all the things that you can show in a widget. You can see there's quite a number of them. You can show all of these in a widget, and then the widget will just show here and be taking that information and displaying them in this graph for you. So as developers, I know we are all curious. You really should take this for a spin because it comes with the server. And again, it's important I put this out there. I am not saying that you don't need the other tools like Grafana, Elasticsearch, all Datadog, all those services and tools out there. They all have their role to play. This is one other tool that does the same thing. And it's now, you now have choices. So you have this server you downloaded that comes with this tool, and then you have the other tools as well. So once you know the tools, the options that you have, then you know which to pick for which particular situation. So Payara Server Monitoring Console is one other monitoring tool in addition to the other ones that you are used to. And of course, you want to play with all of them and then know that, okay, in this context, I will use this tool. In that context, I will use this tool. Like I said, this is built into the server, and then it comes to you once you download. It comes with the server. You download, you enable it, and then you start using. So if you are using Payara or you have not used Payara before, just download, and then you can give it a try without needing to configure anything. Any questions, Dominica?
Yes, we've got some more questions. Daniel, is the monitoring service available for those that don't use MicroProfile?
Yes, there will be some logs or some, even if you don't use MicroProfile, and then you have it on your runtime. So you can have MicroProfile for your application or on your class path without using the API. You'll still get most of this data because MicroProfile has 3 scopes. What I am doing here, this data, this health check data is going to be collected into the application scope. There is the vendor scope, and then there is one other scope. So those 2 other scopes are scopes that are automatically collecting data. They are automatically collecting data. Now, again, I really, you really should use MicroProfile because it augments Jakarta EE. So yes, you can use this without using MicroProfile, but then you're going to most likely be missing out on a lot of the action, if you so will. So you should just drop MicroProfile in there, and then you should use it. It's available. It's part of the platform. It's going to be there. So why not? But again, I understand there can be situations where you just can't use a specific dependency and all that. In that case, yes, you can still use this just fine. You probably are just going to have, because the Payara server itself has a way of monitoring stuff for you. You are going to have this, it's going to be functional, but naturally there's going to be some reduced functionality. But yes, you can use it just fine. Yeah.
Yeah, there's more questions, which is great. Metrics are stored in any database or file as statistics information?
Yes.
Question suggestion.
Yes, this data here, you can configure the store of the data, but what we are doing here, the server itself is storing them. So if I shut down and start again, I'm going to have this data. And as your application is still generating, you're going to be having all this data read over and over and over like that for you. Again, like I said, the documentation goes into detail as to all the options that you have in terms of customizing it, saving data, and all of that. The documentation has all of that, which will be shared with you in the chat.
Yeah, and there's another question sort of follow up about the storage. So where is the configuration of monitoring console stored? For example, all the pages and widgets. When having several Payara instances, can we configure the monitoring console once and somehow transfer the configuration to other instances?
Yes, this is a good question. Now, this here, all these that I did, all these clicks that I clicked are stored. Now, whether you can transfer them or not is something that is a work in progress at the moment. So it's something that we are still working on that. But most of the time, you should be able to copy some files locally and transfer them. Once we get that working correctly, we are going to amend the documentation, and then it should be there for you to take a look at. Yeah.
Yeah, and Gabriel is asking, does the monitoring dashboard enabled in the DAS monitor every application in every deployment group, including all its nodes?
Can you ask the question again?
Does the monitoring dashboard enabled in DAS, DAS
Yeah.
monitor every application in every deployment group, including all its nodes?
Yeah, exactly. So you enable it once, and then you have this available for it's monitoring all the deployed applications for you. So if you come here, provides a way to monitor and log values. No, there was endpoint for instances in the domain. So as long as you are in the same domain, then you are good. Right, the data group and everything, we really thought about this and then try to make it as easy as possible for you. So yes.
Yeah, that's all questions for now. And I think it will probably be all questions because we are almost at the hour. So yeah, over back to you, Lukman. And if you have any more questions, then I'll take them away from this webinar. So do please still type them, but I don't think we'll have time to get to them in the live broadcast.
Yeah, so I'm very happy for all the questions. Of course, these are some of the things, the feedback that we need to make the app better for you, to make your life easy, because at Payara, we just have one focus: to make your Jakarta EE experience as painless, as smooth, and as enjoyable as possible. So some of the questions that you asked are things that naturally I'll be going back to the development team, and then we're going to be discussing them and expatiating them. For starters, the Payara Monitoring Console is a freely available tool in the Payara Server that you download and then have it available to display all the necessary monitoring data your application needs. Of course, you need to monitor your application, and it is through monitoring that you can make informed decisions about the application. And the dead simplest way that you can monitor your application through beautiful graphs, as you have seen, is by taking a spin with the Payara Monitoring Console. So take it for a spin and then let us know what you think.
That's great. Thank you. Thank you, Lukman. And again, thank you everyone for all of the conversation. It was really insightful. And I think, I hope you learned everything or most of it, most of you wanted to take out of this webinar. So yes, we sent some links to the monitoring console documentation in the chat. If you, I'll quickly share my screen as well. If you want to have a look into documentation in general, you can find it on our website. So yes, and also I wanted to just quickly show you the Payara Enterprise is also available for you to try for free. So we've been talking about monitoring console, which is available both in enterprise and community. If you want to give it a go within Payara Enterprise, you can try it for free. It's really easy to access from our website. You just go to payara.fish, click try it, and that will take you to the form, which you just fill in the form, and you should get an email back with your download links for Payara Enterprise. So if you haven't tried it yet, give it a go. It's really simple. You just fill in the form and that's it, and you get your links. So yeah, I think that's it for today. We're at the hour now. So thank you very much again for a conversation. And we will be running some more webinars, which we'll be announcing tomorrow. So if you're interested, then keep an eye on our blog, on our social channels. There's always information posted there. This webinar will also be available as a recording. So if you want to come back to it, check some of the demo again, you can use the same link that you've had sent for entering this webinar. So you can use the same Zoom link for the next week or so to access this recording, and then in about a week or 2 weeks, we will be publishing this as a video on YouTube. So yeah, so you can always go back and check. And of course, if you have any questions beyond this webinar, if you want to have a chat with us, then please just email us at info@payara.fish or go to our website and contact us through the website. Subscribe to the blog. You can also post comments in the blog as well, and we tend to answer those questions as soon as possible. So yeah, whichever way works for you. Thank you again. Thank you, Lukman, for another insightful demo. And yes, have a good day, everyone. Good evening, wherever you are in the world, and we will see you next time. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. See you
Bye.
guys.
Bye, everyone.